I would like to welcome our next speaker, Karen Dawn. I learned about the wonderful work of Karen after reading her book, Thanking the Monkey, Rethinking the Way We Treat Animals, which in a fun and playful, yet deeply researched way, persuades everyone to treat animals better. Karen is also the founder of DawnWatch, which for over 2 decades have been monitoring and influencing social media. And I think that with the power and the impact that social media has today, it's really important to use it as a voice for animals and making sure that compassion is part of the public dialogue. I'm therefore very happy to have Karen with us today to present on using mainstream media for the animals. Thank you so much, Karen.
I have a bit of an Australian accent. I grew up in Australia, but I was born and I live in the States. I don't know if you guys talk about my peeps. Is that something that you know what it means? It's short for people, my peeps, we say. And, I know everybody here was invited because of the work you do for animals to make the world kinder. So talk about feeling wonderful to be in a room full of my peeps. And it's a blessing to be invited, and even more thank you for the honor of speaking here. And thank you for listening. And I hope I have something useful to share about mainstreaming our movement, which is something I've been dedicated to for just about 20 years. I founded DawnWatch at the end of 1999, 2 decades ago. And it was a list with just about 14 people on it. And what DawnWatch is committed to is encouraging the mainstream media to cover animal issues. That's because the mainstream media is incomparably influential, but it is surprisingly easy to influence. And we've had some good luck getting some nice animal coverage, and I'm going to share a little bit about what DawnWatch does in that field. Okay. What's coming up next, actually, one of the things I do is I write as well, and I know that Sasha has read the progressive piece on making animals a political issue. My birthday's tomorrow. And my birthday present is that the Progressive magazine had asked me to do a piece on cell-grown meat, and it is coming out in it's October 1st, it's the October-November issue of Progressive magazine. Now, this didn't just click forward. Oh, I have to turn it on, don't I?
Oh, it is.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Beyond the slaughterhouse, producing real meat without killing animals. That is coming sooner than you realize to a supermarket near you. And I'm excited to say that this is currently the lead story on the Progressive magazine website, which is not a vegetarian news site. It's a political progressive website. So the more that we can get animal-friendly messages out, and this is a 4-page spread, and I just want to share a little bit. I know there's a pointer here that I can use. What we see here is Ian the chicken, and then we see Ian, nuggets of Ian, which usually means that Ian has been killed. And I can't believe the Progressive actually left Ian, who is actually walking under the table while he's being eaten, but it does mention that in the caption for the photograph. And we have messages like, we have to think about what we're going to have left to leave our children and grandchildren, and what we won't have if we don't start making conscious choices. And what Uma Valetti, who's head of Memphis Meats, who are these people who are producing the self-grown meat, had to say was, people out there don't particularly want to kill animals, they just don't want to give up a product they love deeply. So this article is on clean meat. People have different feelings about it. Those who support it, I think, agree with Kim, what he said earlier, that, hey, people just aren't going to stop eating animals, aren't going to be kind to animals just because we ask them to. A lot of people in the animal rights movement feel that the way to stop getting billions of animals killed is by producing meat without killing them. That's a whole nother topic, but that's what this article is about. And in discussing it, it just gets the idea out, the idea that animals are not here for us to use and do with what we want out there into the world through that article. So that's currently in the Progressive magazine. I'm going to let you know what DawnWatch does. I'm going to talk to you more later about DawnWatch media alerts. I do an annual turkey rescue. In America at Thanksgiving, about 60 million turkeys are killed. And anything we can do in the media to get them some coverage to make people think a little bit more about them as animals who maybe aren't necessarily supposed to be there for our dinner is something we try and do. We do a DawnWatch Turkey Pardon Party, which is connected to the turkey rescue. And that's when we get, are you guys familiar with the presidential pardon in America of the turkey? Well, we have a legislator come to our turkey party and ask the turkeys to pardon us for what we've done to their species, starting with factory farming. And we're looking at planning the DawnWatch Media Awards Gala. I have no intention of talking to you about that at all, but I just couldn't resist sharing that photo of Winky Smalls. So that's why that's up there. I'm going to head, right. The DawnWatch Media Alerts, they are aimed at encouraging activists to provide feedback to the media as a way of being able to influence it. They started out as encouraging letters to the editor. That was before the days that everything was all online. Because when you write a letter to the editor, even if your letter doesn't get published, you are influencing people who put major media out into the world. They are reading an animal-friendly message. If quite a few people write on an issue, then at least one of them will get published. Studies of major papers have shown that the letters to the editor page is one of the most widely read pages of traditional print media. Most of us are focused on social media these days, but there's a reason that DawnWatch stays very much focused on mainstream media. That's because if I were to pick up my phone, I would get the impression right now that all of the news in the world is about veggie burgers. And that's because Google knows that I'm interested in veggie burgers and sends me veggie burger news all day long. But what is going on the front page of the New York Times, what is going in Time magazine, that's what most of the world is seeing. And it's very important for us to do our best to see what the world is actually seeing, not just us in our little animal rights bubble is seeing, and to do our best to influence that. So on that note, this article, Inside the Race to Build the World's First Commercial Octopus Farm, appeared in Time magazine a couple of weeks ago. And it was a surprisingly balanced article, and that shows that things are changing a little bit. It wasn't just, isn't this great? We're going to farm octopuses. It noted how intelligent the animals are and that they can recognize themselves in mirrors and they can see prey approaching from behind and turn on them. And I sent it out to DawnWatch subscribers, and it also mentioned, though, that because there's overfishing of octopuses, the answer is to farm them. Now, this was one of about 40 articles in that Time magazine. It was a big story, but it wasn't the lead story. But I suggested to people that we write to Time magazine. Now, it's very important when we write to media that we don't blast them and tell them exactly what we think for two reasons. One is that studies have shown that papers and magazines are far more likely to print letters that compliment them than that criticize them. So if you want to get your point across, if you want to get it printed, it's a much better idea to find some way to compliment the article. And it might be as simple as, thank you so much for covering this important issue, and then nicely address what might not be right with it. The other reason is that those of us who care deeply about animals, we've appointed ourselves as their ambassadors. So it's important that when we're feeling angry at something, we don't vent our anger at the expense of the animals, that we remember we are their ambassadors and we want to be worthy of that ambassadorship. So this article came out, and people who are on DawnWatch know the policy of always being nice, but always doing everything you can to respond to major media. Time magazine doesn't actually print letters anymore. What it does is it prints a column every week which sums up what you guys had to say about the news. And as I mentioned, there were about 40 articles in Time magazine that week, but I know a lot of people from DawnWatch wrote about the octopus article. So the following week, we saw, and this is what the, my pointer, this is what the column looks like. So it says conversation, and it says what you said about. And then this first paragraph is all about the cover story, of course, from the week before. The whole second paragraph of this column, and it is only this long, is all about the octopus story. And I'm going to close up on that, and this is what readers had to say. And I happen to know that these readers were our peeps, and this is on page 4 of Time magazine. Octopus's Garden in the same issue. Tickroot's feature on the race to build a commercial octopus farm shocked some readers. Given our knowledge about sentient species, Anula Wilderk of Las Vegas thought it callous to grow them like crops. Kathy Wallach of New York City said such an effort was ironic amid increased awareness of the effects of factory farming. And Francisca Edwards of Seattle found it horrifying example of humans trying to have their cake and eat it too, by dodging the effects of overfishing without cutting consumption. Should humans grow octopus? At least the question is being asked, wrote Mary Lynn Zeller of North Canton, Ohio, who noted the importance of thinking about where food comes from. And I chuckled to myself because at least the question is being asked is something that I always tell people, at least thank them for covering the issue. And then Elaine Livesey-Fassel, whose answer is highlighted here, she actually won DawnWatch's Media Feedback Award last year at our gala. Avarice too often trumps our common sense. So just from a bunch of people deciding that they were going to respond to an article without writing a whole article, we managed to get on page 4 of Time magazine. This, when the original octopus article was which suggested maybe farming, maybe not, was somewhere at the back of the magazine. I have had some luck getting media that focuses on animal issues in a friendly way. And I'm going to share my own journey, hoping that it might inspire you and tell you what I've learned along the way. So it started in 2004. I was running DawnWatch, and I was at a conference speaking about animal issues. And as usual, I always have my dog with me. You met Winky Smalls. Because it was in Los Angeles, I actually had both of my dogs with me, not just the one who always travels with me. And a reporter came up to me and said, hi, he met me and my dogs, and he said, can I shadow you during the conference? And I said, sure. So he came into my talk, and I spoke about media, and then the next day I arrived at the conference, and somebody came up to me and they said, oh, did you see the article in the Los Angeles Times? There's a huge photo of you in the Los Angeles Times. And I had not seen it, but I grabbed it and I took a look. And I saw there was this beautiful article there, Comfrey's Ponter Vegan is enough. And this, of course, is the huge photo of me in the Los Angeles Times. There's that's the photo. There's a close-up of the huge photo of me. I was a little worried that they said it was so huge. And if you read the caption, it says, animal issues. Paula Dawn, a pit bull terrier, gets comfortable as her human companion, Karen Dawn, speaks during the Animal Rights Conference. And I'd like to think that the reason the reporter wanted to follow me around was because I was by far the best speaker at the conference. But if you look there, it's not the most well-attended talk, but it is the one that was used in the newspaper. And because of Paula's adorable face, that article took up half a page of the Los Angeles Times, and this planted a seed. almost 3 years later to the date, I got a call from a woman named Carla Hall, and because I monitor the media, I knew that Carla Hall was an incredibly animal-friendly reporter at the Los Angeles Times. And someone from the Humane Society, who she had contacted when she was doing an article on pit bulls, said, you need to talk to Karen Dawn because she has pit bulls. Now, of course, I know they're banned in Denmark, and Winky Smalls here is actually a cattle dog boxer mix. But Paula was actually definitely a pit bull. And so Carla called me up and she said to me, I'd love to talk to you about your pit bulls. She said, maybe can we take a walk and I'll talk to you about them. And it was Sunday afternoon, about 5 o'clock, and I said, well, we could take a walk, but I'm actually headed to the pub and I'm bringing them. Do you want to come? And she said, sure, absolutely. Now, part of that was just true. It was 5 p.m. on a Sunday, and I was going to the pub, and I was bringing my dogs, and part of me just knew that's going to be a more interesting story. Sure enough, when the story came out, and it was about 6 different pit bull owners, it started with Karen Dawn walks into the pub with her 2 pit bulls. When Carla sent a photographer by to take a photo, and he wanted to take a photo of me walking my dogs, and I'm like, sure, and we took some photos. But then I remembered, when I'm driving along in my little VW and Paula is hanging out the window, people can't keep her eyes off her. So I said to him, maybe we should do some different shots like of her at the window. And he said, sure. So we get in the car, and Paula's there, and then I see on the floor a pair of doggles. They're goggles that they make for dogs. And I had bought them because they're really good for your dog's eyes, supposedly, but she frigging hated them. I could never make her wear them. And I picked them up, and she was like, no, Mom, I'm going to call the ASPCA. And I said, Paula, 30 seconds for the cause. You look so cute in them. Just put them on. So we put them on her, and she's like, well, that reporter's really handsome, so I'll hang out the window even though I hate these goggles. And he snapped the shot. And a week or so later, front page of the Los Angeles Times, we saw this heading, pit bulls out of the doghouse, on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. And if you're wondering why that article was on the front page, I mean, we've got other things going on in Los Angeles. There's your answer. It also made the week in pictures. It was number 2 out of 22 pictures. And so that, again, planted a seed. Good visuals, you get yourself a good story. A few years later, I was promoting my book, which Sasha so kindly mentioned, Thanking the Monkey, Rethinking the Way We Treat Animals. That came out in 2008, and it got very nicely received, and we're looking at bringing out a second edition next year. And I was on a book tour, and I spoke to the folks at PBS. There was a book show at the time that covered book readings. And I wanted to know if there's some way maybe my book could get covered, because it did get Publishers Weekly chosen as one of their best books that week. And he said, well, usually if we're going to do a reading, we're not going to just do, there's thousands of books and you'll be one amongst many. Is there any way that the reading could be more interesting? Like if we do a story about wine, we might do it in a winery. And I thought, gosh, well, I'm going to Washington, D.C., and my favorite animal sanctuary, Poplar Spring, is there. Maybe I could do a reading there. And I got in touch with Poplar Spring, and they agreed to it. And so I told the guy at PBS I was doing that. And then, well, unfortunately, even with all that effort, they couldn't do it. But I thought, couldn't cover me. But I thought, maybe somebody else would want to cover it. First thing I did was get in touch with Erica Meyer, who has an animal rights group in Washington, D.C., because I thought the local animal rights group is going to know who is animal-friendly in the media. Sending out blind mass press alerts doesn't work nearly as well as contacting a reporter who you have reason to believe is animal-friendly. And she told me that this wonderful woman, Wendy Riegert, had done some wonderful animal stories in the past. So I sent my book to Wendy, and I told her I was doing a reading at Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary. Might she come cover it? Not only did she agree to come cover it, she said, but why don't we go out the day before so that we can get a whole story on it and publicize the reading? And I was like, well, that's an awfully nice idea, thank you. So we did. She did the most beautiful story, which appeared on the 5 p.m. news the day before the book reading. And the reason, again, that story, which talked about this new book, which was all about changing the way we think about animals, the reason that appeared on the news was because I wasn't standing and reading a book or necessarily talking about animal cruelty, etc. These were the sort of images that story was full of. But we did mention during the story what happens to animals on factory farms and that this is what those animals were being saved from. So we delivered the message in a way that was easy for the media to swallow and that they felt they could put out to the world. At that same sanctuary, Potter Spring, I fell in love with a turkey named Olivia. Has anybody in this room had the great pleasure of cuddling a turkey? Oh, my Lord. Okay, if I have to say, if I was speaking at a regular conference, I would expect that to be the answer. But at an animal rights conference, I just spoke to a lovely woman outside who said she wanted to open up a farm animal sanctuary. Where are you, Clearly, you guys need more of them here, don't you? Because most activists in America have had that great pleasure. The first time I went to a sanctuary, I thought I was there to meet the pigs, but little Olivia hobbled out because her toes had been cut off on the factory farm that she had been on. And I was sitting on the grass, and she came up to me, and when I started to pet her, she sat on my lap, and as I petted her, she fell asleep. And I wanted more people to know that about turkeys. So I thought, we have Thanksgiving in America. 60 million of them are killed a year. What could I do? You know, every animal rights group has been putting that story out. Oh, the horror of the turkey slaughters, and mostly the media ignores it. But I thought, what if I had some turkeys in my house over Thanksgiving? I called up Carla Hall, who had done the Pitbull story on me. Why not start with a reporter who had already done a wonderful animal story? I said, Carla, if I managed to get some turkeys in my house over Thanksgiving, do you think that could be an interesting story if I rescued them and maybe retired them to a sanctuary? And her answer was, the photo department would love it. Very important answer. So I spoke to my local sanctuary, and not only were they happy to take a couple of turkeys, but they knew exactly where I could find some that were very likely to fall off the back of a truck when some activists were driving right behind that truck. That happens sometimes, you know. So a couple of turkeys ended up at my house, and Carla came over and she interviewed us on Thanksgiving. And this was actually slated for the front page of the Los Angeles Times, and then Mumbai, the bombings in Mumbai happened. But the B section on Thanksgiving Day of the Los Angeles Times looked like this. And that's Bruce and Emily. And Bruce, when he laid an egg, then he became Brucilla. And there was some joke about that, which now, 10 years later, you probably wouldn't be allowed to make anymore. So, but, and this very fun, wacky photo is over a story which talks about what happens to turkeys at Thanksgiving and why some people choose not to eat them. My first job out of college was I'm getting close, okay. My first job out of college was working for the 7:30 Report in Los Angeles. I worked in Sydney. It's a news station, news media show. And so I learned firsthand. I was sent stories, and I learned, what makes it on the air. And first thing that happened every morning as a news reporter was I was told, read the paper cover to cover. And apparently nothing's changed, because the day that came out in the Los Angeles Times, I got a call from an ABC TV news reporter who had seen that story. And now I know that she's a vegetarian news reporter, because there's vegetarians everywhere in this world, including the news. And she said, that was such a fun story. Can we come film you and your turkeys? And I said, you most certainly can. She came over that afternoon, and on Thanksgiving Day in Los Angeles, ABC News covered us sitting around cuddling our turkeys. And I think it's about 250,000 people saw that story. I had no intention of doing the same thing the following year, but somehow it was so fun to have the turkeys with us over the holidays that the next year I got talked into adopting 2 more. So this time we sent out a press release to see who would pick it up, and there was some pickup. But then I thought, well, ABC covered it last year, but maybe we could do something different this year. Now, when you get turkeys from a factory farm, they come pretty covered in filth and their own, and they need a bath. And the thing is, when you bathe turkeys, you have to blow dry them, which of course we filmed. And I thought, you know what? I bet they don't have a lot of footage of turkeys being blow dried on ABC. So I called up this reporter and I told her I'd rescued 2 more turkeys and that we had footage of them being blow dried. And she's like, send it over now. So ABC came back the next year, came back that year, and they covered it again. It's now 11 years in a row that I have rescued turkeys at Thanksgiving and then retired them to a sanctuary. And ABC7 has covered it every single year. Fox News has covered it, CNN has covered it, and I know it's because the story is a little bit, it's warm and it's fun. Sometimes they've included a moment of slaughterhouse footage in it, but there's always an extremely animal-friendly message. And I'm going to share with you, in closing, as I said, this has been done like 11 times. I'm going to share my favorite one, and I'll explain to you why it's my favorite just after the clip. It's just a couple of minutes.
The vegan group is having its own version of Thanksgiving today. Their celebration began in Pacific Palisades and ended at a farm in Malibu. As Eyewitness News reporter Alex Michelson tells us, their celebration included live turkeys.
Every year we're used to seeing the president pardon a lucky turkey.
Congratulations, Copper. You're going to have a great life.
But these 2 birds living in Pacific Palisades may have an even better life. Their savior is Karen Dawn, who rescued them from being slaughtered. Karen's Thanksgiving dinner is all vegan, with tofurkey served on the table and real-life turkeys walking outside.
Turkeys are a lot more adorable than they are delicious. And that Turkey Day is a lot more fun when the turkeys are alive and well. That's...
As you may have noticed, turkeys can't be house-trained, so Karen keeps hers outside, but she insists they're wonderful pets. One of Karen's main points is that turkeys are not nervous creatures, as is often reported. They really enjoy the feel of the human touch. Karen even washes and blow-dries her turkeys, as shown in this video shot by Brian Vandenberg. The birds are named after celebrities. Rosie O'Donnell, who recently tweeted about going vegan, and Martha Stewart, who's producing vegetarian cooking specials.
I knew I was going to call them Rosie and Martha. I didn't know which one was going to be which, but then on the way home, one of them was making a lot more noise and just, what am I doing in here? And I thought, you know, that one's got to be Rosie.
Both Rosie and Martha love attention from Karen's guests, but both will soon be leaving her home, headed for a turkey sanctuary in Malibu.
Do this just to remind people that these are animals, and you don't have to eat them, and the people at your table who aren't eating them are still having a wonderful Thanksgiving, celebrating in another joyous way.
In Pacific Palisades, Alex Michelson, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay. Thank you. I love all of the coverage at ABC has been so beautiful, and that's because there is a nice vegetarian, animal-friendly producer in charge of it. But the reason that one's my favorite, wait, I think there's, there it is. This is why that one's my favorite, because it's one thing for us to stand and say turkeys are lovely and they're cuddly and it helps. But to have somebody who people see in their home every single night, and they love him, Alex Michelson, cuddling a turkey and talking about how fun it is, that is the message that we're trying to get out into the world. And that came to be that we had Alex cuddling turkeys and letting people know, and Alex did not eat turkey that Thanksgiving Day. I haven't spoken to him since, so I don't know. Because we went out of our way to not shout at people, to be nice, to be warm, to deliver a message in a way that the media was willing to hear it and willing to send it out to people, not to talk down to them, and to do what we could to make it clear that we're part of society. Even Alex likes turkeys. And that's what I think we really, I love the purpose, the name of this conference, Mainstream Animal Protection, is there's no better way to do it than through the media. And I hope I've shown today that there's lots of ways to do that. Feedback is one way, and you saw what happened with Time Magazine. It can happen with letters to the editor. And just in general, when you are pitching, I know a lot of people here head up animal groups. When you pitch to the media, think about what is going to be the shot that they can use, that they're going to want to show people, and then include your message underneath that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you.
Any questions for Karen?
Relate.
Anyone?
I'd be very offended, except we're behind time, so I'm kind of...
I'll just ask one quick
Okay.
question. Like, since I think it's amazing work what you've been doing with DawnWatch, and I was just curious if you could put a few words, like, what has been the development and how animals have been covered in media?
I love that question because
Yeah.
it makes me so happy. I started DawnWatch in November '99, so we're getting really close. And I used to go through, using LexisNexis, through magazine articles and try and find something on animals. And if there was a vegetarian recipe on page 47 of a magazine, I would be sending it out to people saying, can you please write to the paper and say how excited you are to see a not even vegan, vegetarian recipe? And some people would want to be complaining it wasn't vegan. I'd be like, no, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But now we are. These days, I could not possibly cover all the media on animals. I get hundreds and hundreds of articles every day and just have to choose the ones on the front page of the New York Times, or where we are compared to where we were 20 years ago is astounding. So we still have a long way to go. I asked the policeman gentleman, I don't know if he's still here, when I asked him, I wasn't trying to put him on the spot this morning. I was trying to get a real sense of where we are. We're not yet that the world thinks that animals deserve lives just of their own. But if we compare where we are now compared to where we were 20 years ago, there is plenty, as Jane Goodall says, reason for hope. Come a long way.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Karen.